Hi, and welcome to your last didactic semester before moving into your fieldworks. I am so excited for you all. Um, the intent of this class, OTM 625, is to really pull together all of the pieces from the previous semesters and get you to that place of relative confidence. I feel that confidence just comes with a lot of practice, but really to that place of solidifying your knowledge that you've gained over the semesters and demonstrating your competence with being an entry-level occupational therapist, or to prepare you to become an entry-level occupational therapist through your fieldwork experiences. So the way we have this class set up is primarily each week that we meet for lab, you will be demonstrating competence in an area of evaluation or treatment. And then for your final competencies, you'll be pulling that all together with a full case study from top to bottom: evaluation, treatment, discharge planning. Now remember, when it comes to discharge planning, that starts the moment you open that client's chart, and it's ongoing. Every time you work with that client, we are always discharge planning. We're thinking about home exercise programs. We're thinking about family and caregiver training. We're thinking about client training. We're thinking about medical equipment, durable medical equipment, adaptive equipment. We're thinking about where are they going after they're finished with you? What are the next steps? So we're always thinking about as we're working with our client, because we're always reassessing, reevaluating their performance and how they're making progress. So as you're familiar with all of your classes, in your welcome section, you will find your course texts, recommended texts. There is nothing new here. You should have every single one of the required texts, and if you chose to purchase the recommended text, you will also have them. We've had you include Ashers here, similar to last semester in 624, to really pull out what assessments are going to be most appropriate for this client. You'll be referring to your Gatley and Borcherding through the most of the beginning of this semester, paired with a concept quiz each week to ensure your understanding of the readings, which I'm sure you've done many of them. Now you have the opportunity to really dive deeper into what do these chapters really mean. The workbook, you'll be referred to several worksheets throughout the semester to complete, which will really solidify your learning and give you an opportunity to really practice what you're working on. And it will also provide you as a study guide when you get into 694, your classroom to taking the NBCOT prep exam, NBCOT exam. Of course, you're always, 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 number one, using your OTPF language. It's what makes our discipline unique, our profession unique, is that professional language. So we'll always be looking for that professional language. And the OT process is in there. So if you ever forget what we do as OTs, basically this document tells you how to be an OT at its very baseline, at its very basics. And then, of course, you've got your Pedretti. There'll be a couple readings from Pedretti, but they're really just more related to documentation, therapeutic activities, occupations, just some reminders as you go through the semester. And of course, your subscription to EHR Go, where we'll be pulling most of the case studies from. And then the recommended texts hall, it's just a great workbook, basically, of home exercise programs, education sheets that you can give to clients. If you haven't looked at it, I have a copy in my office if it helps you make a decision if you'd like to purchase it or not. And these other two are just references and resources for development of understanding, what are some of the concepts. Maybe it's a dictionary, so if you're like, I forget what this thing is, you can look it up. with Jacobs and Simon, and then this Mariano and Latella is another resource for helping develop interventions. Again, as always, my announcements and muddy points. So if there's anything that I'm going to announce to the class, that'll be here. And if there's anything you're confused about, and I'm sure if you have the question, others will have the question, put that in your muddy points. Those will be automatically pushed to you, so you don't necessarily need to check that daily. ICE video library, if you need to check in on what a diagnosis is, you've got that there, and likely we'll be using that throughout the semester as well. So your syllabus. Sorry, open for you. So your syllabus should look pretty familiar. The only new, well, she's not new because you worked with her in 615, Professor Karpiniak, but just be sure to CC both of us on all of your emails, just in case one of us is not available. Sorry, I'm not sure if you caught that. The Professor Karpiniak, as I said, is new to this class, but if you're going to be emailing us, please email both of us, CC both of us on the email, because if one of us is not available, make sure that one of us is getting the email and responding to you. And if we don't respond to you, send us a reminder, because sometimes our emails get pretty full. As always, the standard, how we're teaching it to you, and then how we're assessing you. And there's a fair number of standards in this class. So let's look at what the assessments are for those standards. So as I had said, each lab week, the first 4, the 2nd through the 6th, will be your graded lab assessments. So you'll be given a case study, and the first lab will be an adult, the second lab will be a peds. You'll do an evaluation. So you will be paired into 3 or grouped into 3 students, 3 peers. One will be the therapist, one will be the client, so that should be a familiar model, and then one will be a peer reviewer. Also, that should be a familiar model. You've done this before. In this context, the person who's doing the peer reviewing is also videoing the therapist. So be sure that you have at least 30 minutes of space on your phone or your tablet to accommodate for that. If you don't, I have several extra iPads. So if you need an iPad for these assignments, please let me know. So the peer will be recording, they'll be taking notes. This is a great opportunity for a selfie stick. Bring those in. You don't even have to hold it, but somebody needs to be recording this, the lab. After the lab is finished, you will all do your documentation. So if you're doing an eval, you will have 45 minutes to complete your documentation on your evaluation, to include what you observed, what you tested, goals, assessment, discharge, frequency, duration, length of stay, all of the components of an evaluation. You will go home, you'll review your video, you'll look at the feedback. Well, really, you should be talking with your partner about that feedback. So all of the person who was the client and the person who is the peer reviewer, certainly giving that constructive feedback in real time is very helpful, and that certainly will help with your documentation. You'll go home, you'll watch your video, and you'll do a brief reflection on what it is that you learned and how to improve, and where you see your strengths and where you see barriers. So basically doing an activity analysis on yourself. That will lead to your, and then, so there'll be 2 of those, and then you'll do 2 interventions, again, both peds and adults. And then you'll have your final intervention capstones, which will encompass the whole process. And this is where you'll get feedback direct from community OTs, and that is very exciting. Learning activities, depending on where you're at during the semester, we might throw in something extra to really help with learning. The big one for this is at the beginning of the semester, you'll do a clinical skills assessment that will have you develop a professional development plan. So it will ask you questions very specifically. How do you feel treating X, Y, and Z? How do you feel evaluating? How do you feel in these different practice settings? And right now, you might not feel confident at all in many areas. And this might sound familiar to the assessment that you took at the end of 525. Again, what are you feeling confident with? 525, you will, or that assessment at 525, you will look at that again in 694, which is why we did not include it in this class. But you will do that professional development plan. And then at the end of the semester, you will re-evaluate yourself and then do another reflection. Did you meet your goals? Did you meet that professional development plan? Did you learn anything? And if you did, wonderful. If you didn't, let us know so we can certainly improve our program. And then the final assignment is evaluation and handoff of care. So what does that mean? You will be reading so many people's other documentation. So many other people will be reading your documentation. So we want to ensure that it makes sense. You've gotten lots of feedback from us, but now it's time for your peers to give you feedback who are going to be reading your documentation more than us. So you'll watch an ICE video, do an evaluation on that client, and then you'll do a handoff sheet. This is something we've not really talked about at all, but this is when you're not there, if you're never seeing that client again, what does the next therapist need to know about this client, and how do you prepare them to go in and treat them? And you will do a handoff sheet in most practice settings. So you'll do an eval, you'll do a handoff, and then you'll switch with a peer and you'll get direct feedback. And then you'll have your quizzes throughout the semester. I think I've covered everything. Certainly, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We will certainly go through these again. This will not be the first time you hear this information, but if you do have specific questions, be sure to let us know. And I look forward to seeing you all soon.